I think it's a no-brainer. As far as the entertainment that you'll get out of it versus the dollars spent, this is a work of art. Let's go ahead and take a look at the contents of The Crew, the Quest for Planet 9 from Cosmos Games. Here we have all of the different components in the game. They may look simple and few, but believe me, they pack quite the punch. Every game, all of these cards will be dealt out to all of the players. These are task cards that indicate what player will need to take what card in order to complete a mission. These are communication tokens that will remind players whether or not they have used up their communication for the round. This is the commander token that basically acts as a first player token. This is a token that you can use to signal Earth base for help. These I'm going to return to the box and not cover in detail. They'll be reminders as to what you need to do on each of your missions. And these are also reminder cards for when you use a communication. You'll take one of these into your hand to remind yourself that you have a card that is still in your hand but is currently face up in the on the front of the table. So let's go ahead and let's start a round. To begin, we would check the logbook to see what the requirements of the mission are. I'm not going to go through an actual mission because I don't want to go through I don't want to have any spoilers. Basically, there are 50 missions that we must get through in order to reach Planet 9. They're narrative-based, so you can follow the story through as the different members of the crew in their quest for Planet 9. Give each player one of the communication pieces and return any extras to the box. Go ahead and shuffle the task cards as well. Place those off to the side. Choose your starting player. And then simply deal out all of the cards to the players. At this point, we can all pick up our hands and look at our cards. The logbook will indicate how many tasks to place out and what type of tasks they'll be. In this case, we'll do 2 tasks. Beginning with the commander and rotating clockwise, the tasks will be taken by the different players. Play proceeds much like the game of Hearts. Starting with the commander, a card would be played to the center. If we have a card that is a yellow that matches the suit, we must play it. In this case, I only have one option, which would be the yellow 4. Now this player, unfortunately, has only 2 options, both of which are higher than the 7. They must play one of those. The trick would go over here, and we would have failed the mission because this player did not achieve their task. We would have to start the round over. There's one thing that probably could have avoided that. Before the trick began, if I had placed this card out in front of me, taken one of the reminder cards into my hand, I am able to place this in 3 locations on the card. I could place it on the top of this card, indicating that this is the highest card of this color that I have in my hand. I can place it in the center, indicating that it's the only card of this color that I have in my hand. Or I can place it on the bottom, indicating that it is the lowest card of this color that I have in my hand. In this case, if I had placed it in the center and said this is the only card I have of this color in my hand, then this player, looking at their hand, knowing that there are 3 players, can suppose that player number 3 over here has the 8 and the 9 in their hand. thus indicating that it was probably not a good idea right now to play a yellow, for I will be forced to play the yellow 4 and we will lose the mission. Play will continue around the circle until all of the cards are gone and all the tricks have been taken, or until all of the missions or all of the tasks have been accomplished and laid face down, in which case we've accomplished the mission and we can choose to start another round and move on to another mission, or simply to be done playing for the day. Now, what do I think of the crew? When I first read about the crew when it was up for nomination for the German Game of the Year, I was skeptical. I probably ranked it at the bottom of my choices, having not played it, but I ranked it right at the bottom, thinking that it was too difficult to create a game that limited communication but was still fun. Games that restrict your communication typically end up being less fun for me. Games like Werewolf or Hanabi end up working against what I find endearing in board games. The fact that we can sit around and we can have open, real conversations with each other that we normally wouldn't have. I was very concerned that the crew would end up being one of those that I wanted to have conversation. I wanted to say things, but it just restricted the conversation more than I wanted. It actually was very opposite of that, and I'm eating crow because I actually think it was beautifully done. A lot of people could also assume that it's really just a game of hearts that is reworked in a slight way, but the gameplay feels completely different. If you were to say this is simply cooperative hearts, it's oversimplifying it to the max. The nuances of strategy and the nuances of teamwork that arise from these simple rule changes really lend themselves to a completely different experience, and one that I'm glad I've had. Personally, I can't think of a reason why you wouldn't buy the crew. And I'm not just saying that because I treat my board game budget pretty sacredly. It's $15. The story infusion that you get out of it, the 50 missions to play through even just once, which that's not where the playability ends by any means. The game is beautifully replayable. It has depth of strategy. It has this feeling of bringing a crew together, and it's really just fantastic. There's one thing that makes me not give this a full 6 pip rating, and it's hard because I don't feel like it's enough to knock it down a full pip, but it is something. The theme of the crew going to find Planet 9 made sense in a lot of ways. The teamwork, the trying to get the tasks fulfilled to accomplish the mission, all felt good, but there were some things that just didn't make a lot of sense. Radioing to Earth for help and then not being able to communicate, like passing of cards. There were a couple things like the limited communication didn't make a ton of sense. Just a few things that the mechanics and the story didn't tend to blend as nicely as I thought they should, and that's why I don't give it its last pip. I think some games take me deeper into a story and are really immersive. A lot of the mechanics of the crew pulled me out of the story, and I was always aware that I was still playing a board game. Overall, fantastic game, so worth the money, and I think it's a well-warranted German Game of the Year. I think it's accurately awarded, and I think it's a no-brainer. As far as the entertainment that you'll get out of it versus the dollars spent, this is a work of art. It has a simple rule set that is elegant and easy to teach, learn, and a joy to experience. So pick up the crew if you haven't had a chance yet. It is a fantastic game.